Just hours away from the Sugar Bowl now. We got some stuff to talk about, including an on-3 rider that might have a little bit of a bone to pick. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. We're going to be joined by Daylan Flowers of the Rebel Walk. He's also a contributor to our All Access Everydayers Club branch of this channel. If you're interested in that, you can check the link down in the description. It's the Supercast link, and check out that. It's $15 a month for All Access. It's $5 a month for no interruptions. So we'll talk about that later. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in the world. That's all because of you. On today's show, we're going to talk Sugar Bowl. We're going to talk Chris Lowe. We're going to talk just a hodgepodge of stuff leading up to tonight's Sugar Bowl. But first, Daylan Flowers is going to explain what he found out at Media Days at the Sugar Bowl this week. All of this and more on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so Daylan, Chris Lowe, media, everybody gathered at Media Days. The Sugar Bowl has an interesting setup where about 50 players and coaches and all that is kind of a free-for-all for the press. It's almost like Christmas morning, the time of year it works, is them going to get the interviews. And Chris Lowe went around and talked to members that he knew was on the leadership council at Ole Miss, like Tyler Banks and Bryson Sanders, those guys that make important decisions for the football team. And the reason he did that is because he was just letting it know that the leadership council told Lane Kiffin to go. Whenever he made his pitch for why he should stay, they told him to go, despite what anybody else that is carrying his water is saying. That is what happened. This tells me, Daylan, that Chris Lowe got burned during this whole thing by Lane Kiffin, and he is out for blood right now because this article feels pointed and directed.
Yeah, Chris Lowe has been heavily involved with Ole Miss and obviously the Lane Kiffin saga since around the time of the Florida game, which was the last home regular season game for Ole Miss. And a lot of stories and relationships and conversations with him and Lane have obviously been talked about. He was at the Egg Bowl. And this is something that's surprisingly didn't maybe happen sooner, in my opinion, because I thought that this motion from Chris and Lane Kiffin and Lane Kiffin's party had a little bit of a burnt relationship really kind of immediately after the Egg Bowl, in my opinion, for a lot of different reasons. But I also kind of got the sense of this notion that things like this would come out, not maybe specifically from Chris, but someone after Pete Golding was announced as the head coach, and we saw some Ole Miss football players kind of trickle out and basically call Lane Kiffin a liar and say, certain things that he said wasn't true and that he never came and talked to anyone, et cetera, et cetera. So this news isn't surprising at all. I think there are a plethora of players that have come to Ole Miss and bleed the Ole Miss red and navy, whether it's Tyler Banks, guys like Bryson Sanders, maybe Jaden Williams, TJ Daugherty. And those guys are not only bought into Ole Miss, but they're bought into Pete Golding. And right now, you've said this, but I will say this again as well. He's already want to know as a head coach, but his PR since becoming the head coach has been insane. He's been on an insane run. He's really taken this PR run and really just ran with it. And that's the best thing he could be doing right now in terms of winning out this football season, but also creating a lot of retention for 2026. So I'm not surprised that these things have come out. And as well, I'm not surprised that Chris Lowe is doing this at this time either. I think that is kind of building into the motion, which I'm sure we'll get into later on about Lane Kiffin trying to, get some attention still going his way. But, I'm not surprised by this move at all. And, it was something that kind of you felt was going to edge to happen. But this also speaks onto the volumes of Ole Miss fans that needed a little bit of comfort into saying, who are our guys? Who are the guys that we know that love this university, the guys that we know would never even consider leaving? And some of those guys are now being, put into the front view and really being shown for the fan favorite. So, I think that honestly, I've seen someone else say this, but I've also been saying this as well. I think this whole entire saga over the last 2 months is honestly just a little fire in these players, and it will really be able to show in the Sugar Bowl game tomorrow night or today, whenever this airs. So I think that this moment, as much as it may have been a sucky ride and a weird ride, it's gonna enlighten these players to want to combine together and really give it their all against the Georgia Bulldogs in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, and interesting because everybody that's on Twitter saw the little moments between Georgia players and Ole Miss players.
Yeah.
Gets in charge. It's going to be a galvanized game. There's two teams that are really in for this. This is going to be a good football game, and this is probably the two best Southeastern Conference teams. Maybe if you take Alabama, you can add them as well. But I'm looking forward to what can happen in this game, especially defensively, because the last game between Ole Miss and the Georgia Dogs, the Ole Miss's defense's pride got hurt just a little bit.
Yeah.
And due to that, they got a lot better really, really quick, to the tune of going into the Georgia game, they had 5 sacks. After the Georgia game, they had 20 sacks.
Yep.
It's a completely different defense, and a lot of it had to do what happened on that Saturday.
Yeah, I'd argue that their pride got hurt a lot. You've heard TJ Daugherty and Will Eccles talk about it a lot throughout the media over the last few weeks. That the main thing that they're reminded about that game is that Georgia didn't punt a single time, and they feel like if they made Georgia just punt once or twice, then Ole Miss would have walked away with a victory in Athens that weekend. So, and you said as well, I think these two teams may honestly be the hottest teams in the country over the last month. Both of these teams are peaking. Both teams are getting guys back at the right time. And there are just miscues on both ends that I think both coaching staffs looked at and are like, these are minor things that we can clean up that will allow us to compete better against one another. And as well, like you said, the moment between the players on Bourbon Tree was really fun. It's just kind of becoming like a fun rivalry between Ole Miss and Georgia. Ole Miss has definitely been able to compete with Georgia on the field the last few years. And it's given an edge to Ole Miss fans to say, we can do this. I know what happened in October was a sour punch in the mouth, but it may have been needed for this Ole Miss team to understand what exactly we need to work on, to understand what we can do better, and also understand what we already do really well, and how do we do that for 4 full quarters of a football game, which is what this game is going to be about. I think Georgia also has taken a lot of things defensively that they made mistakes on against us in the first game, and really are just looking to do better. I think you'll see a lot more press coverage from Georgia early on, and a lot more pressure sent towards Trinidad Chambliss. And trust me, Pete Golding has these guys ready. They've been watching film like crazy over the last 2 weeks. They're going to be ready for anything that comes their way, but this is going to be a fun ball game nonetheless for either side, for neutral fans. This is what the college football playoff quarterfinals is all about. And I'm just super excited to be able to watch it, be a part of it. And I think this is going to be a game that both fans really are going to be on their edge of their seats for the entire game.
Yeah, and the irony in this thing is I do expect that. I expect Georgia to play more press man coverage. I expect them to pressure Trinidad Chambliss, which means this is a tailor-made game for screens and draws, those quick hitting things. Surely if I'm thinking about that, Ole Miss has thought about that as well. And I'm expecting to see some of that stuff in this game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I said this going into the first game. I didn't expect the game that ended up happening. And I don't think this is going to be a lot of the game that I think most fans are expecting, and saying that I think a lot of fans are expecting this to kind of be a 2.0 of the first game where, the offenses go back and forth. I think both defenses have learned a lot from that first game, that first matchup. And both defenses have honestly gotten better. I think Georgia's defense has really been peaking since the Ole Miss game. And I think, as you said earlier in the clips to the sack total, and not even just the sack total, but the man coverage that Ole Miss has played since the Georgia game, the accountability from players, the linebackers have been playing better, the secondary has gotten better. Wyatt Williams has become a really fantastic player for this team as well since the Georgia game. I think in Jalen Braxton and other guys, et cetera as well. I think there are both of these defenses that have spoken highly about the opposing offense that have really just taken accountability since that game and said, to each other and said to themselves, this is a prideful thing. We cannot allow what happened the last game to happen again for either side. And I really think both defenses are taking a notion to that. Obviously, Pete Golding is now the head coach, so he has a different fire and edge to really not allow what happened again with the first time around to happen again. But as well, Kirby Smart, obviously being the defensive genius that he is going to have his guys ready to go. So this should be a fun match because as well on the other side of the ball for both teams, these are two offenses that are really potent, two offenses that are really healthy. These are two offenses that take care of the ball really well, and two offenses that run the ball really well. So I think that would be a good matchup for both defenses who can stop the run better. So this is a game that, in the X's and O's should be fun on both sides for all fans. And I think if you really, really want to see some of the key things happens, in the fourth quarter of the Ole Miss Georgia first game, I thought that things obviously didn't trickle down for Ole Miss the way they wanted to. But if they can develop a little bit more of a balanced running game, and if they can continue the protection in the fourth quarter, then Ole Miss has a good chance to beat Georgia. But it's going to be a fun game between two teams that are really, really peaking at the highest moment right now.
All right, when we come back, we are going to talk to Daylan Flowers about Georgia's layoff coming into this game. We'll talk about players that might contribute that we might not be expecting right now, kind of like Jalen Braxton showed up against Tulane. We'll talk about that all coming up next on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Fridays already feel different during the basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before games tip off, FanDuel gives a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app right before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app before or during happy hour always brings something new, boost, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check out the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing's absolutely perfect, right before the games, right before the weekend starts. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check out the FanDuel app to see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's the NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs nothing, but it helps keep all of this free. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Ole Miss with no interruptions, members-only Discord action, and more. All for just $5 a month or $50 per year. Go to lockedonolemmiss.supercast.com or check the link down in these show notes below. And Daylan Flowers, our all-access branch of our Everydayers Club, he contributes to that with 5-6-minute videos reporting around the Ole Miss campus on sports other than football or football whenever it is necessary. So that's a good place to see some pretty cool Daylan content as well. So Daylan, looking at this game, in the Ole Miss Tulane game, Jalen Braxton was the player that kind of reemerged himself. We were talking about people that weren't really contributors that could contribute. It turned out to be Jalen Braxton. Yep. I'm wondering who that player is going to be in this game because Jalen Braxton, I think he's honestly earned a home outside of Antonio Kite at cornerback. And that means that maybe Nick Cole or somebody goes inside or Kapina Gushigan. I am curious to see what happens. And in a game in the Superdome, I think it's important to look at players with New Orleans ties. My pick to click in this game, none other than Logan Diggs.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually. You know what? I won't necessarily stay in New Orleans, but I'll stay in Louisiana. I think Andrew Jones being a Grambling State transfer will really have an impact on this game. I think that his impact was shown a little bit in the kind of the first matchup when he was able to finally get that opportunity late in the game, and then since then he's kind of really been a consistent player for the linebacking core and the defensive peak all day. I think he may be a key player for Ole Miss in terms of being able to tackle in the open field, limit some of the passes in the middle of the field, and also get to Gunner Stockton. But I like Logan Diggs as well. Him being able to score a touchdown against Tulane was really important for his confidence and his momentum going into this game. A very good running back that can take care of the football, someone you can rely on in the red zone to get you points. And as well, I think a bit of his game is underrated is his receiving ability. I think he can get in the open field, make some plays happen with his feet, and juke some defenders and get upfield really well. He has to have a big game to provide some type of resistance for Kewan Lacey. It seems like Kewan Lacey is going to play, but obviously we're all kind of respecting that he's not going to be 100% for that game. So the balance and the rotation and the substitution for Logan Diggs will be very, very important for the Ole Miss offense. But vitally as important as I say all those things that he does well is being able to pass block for Trinidad Chambers. He has the size to do it. He's not really done it the best this season, but I've seen him do it really well at times. Kewan Lacey, despite the numbers as a running back, despite the elusiveness, despite the breaking tackles, he's been a really, really, really big pass blocker for Ole Miss this year, which has allowed Trinidad Chambers to be elusive with his legs, to be more effective in the pass game. And if Logan Diggs can come in and provide that quality to the Ole Miss offense, then Ole Miss is not going to miss a beat with Kewan Lacey, maybe not being in terms of having the snaps he usually does, may not being in the realm of that. So I'm really excited for Logan Diggs to get this opportunity. He's battle tested with LSU and Notre Dame, so this is not a new territory for him. He's played a lot of football, so he will obviously really be big for Ole Miss. But I said this in one of my videos with your All Access Club. This wide receiver room, man, I keep watching them. I've been watching film all the past 2 days. I'm rewatching the Georgia game right before I got on. There's just so much talent, man. This tight end room, this wide receiver room. There's so many pass catchers, which benefits Ole Miss in the late game situation. So if Logan Diggs can come in, help protect the pass game, Trinidad Chambers has the options to get it to anybody that can make big plays. So Logan Diggs really will be a key factor for the Ole Miss offense developing really well this Thursday.
And I also think that it's possible that you might see Ole Miss use 12 personnel from time to time in this game.
Yeah.
I think a Daijahn Wright and adding Lukas or a Caleb Odom adds that big element in the middle of the field, because the number one matchup you want to try to exploit are the Georgia linebackers. I'm not saying they're not good. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that is the key to unlocking the rest of the defense to where you can actually start to make things work. And Georgia's linebacker is going to have to spy Trinidad Chambers. So one of the linebackers is going to be taken. So it's going to be imperative for Daijahn Wright or whoever's in the slot, maybe Caden Lee, to make enough plays to where they're worried about what's behind them to keep them from free flowing towards the line of scrimmage. And then they'll bring a safety down into the box to shut down on the run a little bit. And then you get the one-on-ones on the outside. And that's how you unlock the Georgia defense.
Yeah, because when you're facing a defense like Georgia that is hungry and ready to get some get back. I mean, this is the Ole Miss offense. They really embarrassed them the first game around. But also, I keep trickling in the back of my head that performance in the Sugar Bowl last year. The way that Georgia ended their season last year. Georgia really has a chip on their shoulders. But what makes this offense so great is when you're playing against a defense like Georgia that is wanting to get to the quarterback. Ole Miss runs so fast. Trinidad Chambers gets his passes out so quickly. The receivers run their routes so quickly, and they get to their spots so easily. It doesn't allow the Georgia defensive fronts to get up and try to even have a really good attack on the opposing quarterback. And so when, Trinidad Chambers is rolling, when he's realizing the pre-snaps and he's understanding what the Georgia defense has said and how he wants to evaluate the offense and make switches and make changes, that's when the Ole Miss offense really starts, circulating. I thought they attacked the Georgia defense and secondary really well in that aspect in the first game, in terms of, if you watch really until the fourth quarter, there was a lot of drop coverage from the Georgia secondary, and they were playing back from the corner safety positions, and it was allowing some just go routes and some stop and go routes and some slants for the Ole Miss offense and receivers to really just get open. And when they get open field, it's going to be hard to just bring a guy like Deshaun Stribling down or Caleb Odom or Daijahn Wright. There are so many arsenals in the repertoire for Trinidad Chambers. When you get in any position of the field, you're not really concerned about who can I rely on to make this happen. Who do I need to rely on to make a big catch, or who do I need to rely on to be a great slot receiver? there are people in every aspect in that room, in the wide receiver room, in the tight end room, which makes the Georgia defense be put in a bind because they then are not allowed to substitute the way they want to, or they may not or be allowed to press the way they want to because they have to, matriculate for a lot of different things. But also rewatching the Georgia game, what stood out to me is the ability of Trinidad Chambers with his legs. When you have a quarterback that can throw and run, it puts a bind on any defense. And so his rushing abilities were shown in the 2 touchdowns against Tulane, but it also will be very, very effective once again if Ole Miss wants to beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl this time around.
All right, when we come back, we will go over Ole Miss's path to victory against the Georgia Bulldogs and get Dalen's prediction. All that is coming up right after this. There's nothing like college football season, tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever, but actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Game Time is giving the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a couple of taps. I opened up the Game Time app to look at the upcoming college football games, especially the Sugar Bowl. I mean, the discount on these tickets with Game Time, that would probably help you out a little bit. But I was surprised how fast it was to find really great seats in the Superdome. The app is incredibly easy to use. I went from browsing to buying tickets in just minutes. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And with the Sugar Bowl being the most expensive ticket for get-in prices out there, this could really help you. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time app today and get in the game. All right. So, Dalen, what do you think the paths in this game look like for Ole Miss to get the W over the Georgia Bulldogs?
Firstly, I guess I have to start on the defensive side since that's obviously the big talk. First of all, you cannot allow Lawson Lucky to have 3 touchdowns again. That's the number one thing. When you get this Georgia offense gets into the red zone, Ole Miss has to fight to their hardest. I think that the passing defense has been really well for Ole Miss this year. It's just the run game, the rushing defense has not, been up to par. But when you get into the red zone, I think the number one goal is to either hold them to 0 or 3 points. That's a win every time, in my opinion. And when Georgia got to the red zone in the first matchup, they dominated. They took control, and whether that was throwing the ball from Gunnar Stockton or using his legs effectively. So I think that's number one, is stopping Lawson Lucky and not allowing him to go off again. Number two, I say from a defensive standpoint, is make this Georgia offense work on first and second down. You don't want Georgia to have a lot of third and shorts, a 3rd and 2, a 3rd and 3, 3rd and 1. You want them to get to third down and it's 3rd and 7 plus 3rd and 10. You want them to have hard third downs, which puts a little bit more comfort in your defense to, maybe run different coverages or, maybe sit back a little bit and allow things maybe to just fall in front and, just don't worry about the big plays. I think if Ole Miss defensively can win the first and second down portion, then they're setting themselves up for success in the long run because their defense will be able to get off the field much more and will stay rested up when come the fourth quarter. So I think that's the 2 biggest things for me defensively, and obviously stop the run. Not even stop the run, but contain the run. You're not going to be able to stop the run game no matter who you are, but if you can contain it, I think that you're putting yourself and putting your offense in many positions to win the game. Offensively, I think you have to find a balance in the run game, whether it's Logan Diggs, Trinidad Chambers, Keywan Lacey. There has to be a balance. All 3 of those guys will be important with their legs and really putting the Georgia defense in a bye. When you're balanced offense, you're putting defenses in a position where you don't know how to set up for the pass, the run, where this is going to go. I thought Georgia really did a good job in the fourth quarter of that game. In the first game, when they really were settled down and understood the magnitude of the game, they didn't allow a lot of balanced things to happen, and I think that really helped them win the game in the first game. So if this Georgia defense cannot find a balanced tack to stop the Ole Miss run game, then Ole Miss wins offensively there. And secondly, I think what is also important is Trinidad Chandler is just trusting his arm. I don't necessarily say he didn't trust it in the first game, but I can't, overlook some of the underthrows and overthrows in the fourth quarter and how vital some of those would have been.
He spiked one to Daijahn Wright that would have went for 45 yards.
Yeah. And so, as much as the defense did not show up the first game, there were some moments late in the game that I thought Trinidad Chandler's, if he just puts that throw on the money, then, maybe Ole Miss does win despite the defensive lapse. So I think if Trinidad Chandler's just continue to stay healthy since the Tulane game, continue to watch the film, continue to grow with his receivers, he makes those confident throws. I've seen him make some very, very tight and scary throws this year, but he's made them and he has confidence in his arm. If he continues to have that in the late game situation against Georgia, I think that Ole Miss will really be, an effective team to stop. And also another guy, and this is my last point for the offense, I think that it's been really, really, really good for Ole Miss this year is Daijahn Wright. When he's gone, when he's making the big plays, when he's stopping in the middle field, when he's pass blocking, when he's, running in motion, confusing the Georgia defense, confusing any defense that Ole Miss has faced this year, this Ole Miss offense is a rolling train, and it's hard to stop them. So I would say get Daijahn Wright involved early, get him, get the ball in his hands, allow the Georgia defense to spy him and watch him, and they say, oh, we need to attack this guy. Then it'll allow the other guys, Stribling, Wallace, Caden Lee, Caleb Oldham, Luke Haslett, we may see him out there to then get some one-on-one coverages, do their thing, and then get open and make some big plays. So those are my key takeaways. If Ole Miss wants to have a path to win, I think that it's an ability of sustaining drives and spotting the ball, as Pete Conan has said. So if Ole Miss can do that, then this should be a very fun end of the night, and Happy New Year's to Ole Miss fans.
My prediction that I made for this game is Ole Miss winning 27-21. What say you? What's your prediction?
Oh, you know what? I actually am very close to you. I went 28-24 Ole Miss, so I'm not too far off from that on my final predictions. I think that this offense is peaking for Ole Miss, and I think that it's very, very hard. As many people have said, it's very, very hard to beat a team twice, and I think that Ole Miss is hungry, and they're ready to prove the doubters wrong. Nobody from the national media is believing in Ole Miss to win this game.
None.
People are believing Ole Miss is going to cover. Some are not. Some are saying Georgia's going to come in and stomp Ole Miss, but nobody from the national media are believing Ole Miss is going to have a chance. And they're hearing it. They're reading it. They're seeing it, whether or not. I know we keep talking to these players, coaches. They're like 1-0, and they're focused on the game. That's true, but trust me, they're hearing these things. They're seeing it. They're listening to it. No one from the national perspective believes Ole Miss and Pete Golding has a chance. They're hungry. They're ready to prove everyone wrong. So it should be a fun, physical, back-and-forth game between two great teams. I'm just excited to watch it and be a part of it tomorrow.
All right, Dalen, thank you very much, and we'll talk next week, buddy.
Appreciate you, man. Hotty toddy, y'all.
Hotty toddy. Thank you for tuning into the show today on Locked On Ole Miss. We have Bill Flowers coming up in a couple of hours. We have a live pregame show coming up at 5 o'clock Central Time. And then about 30 minutes after the game will be the overreaction. Please join us for that as well, live streaming. Taking your comments. We make the shows for the pregame and the postgame, at least a segment about you. So join us for that. Make sure you subscribe and follow the show so you can get all the latest episodes as well. We're on all the social channels, so check that out as well. And also, did Locked On Ole Miss make your Spotify Wrapped? Prove it on social media to secure a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag our national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform, and they'll drop you the code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club to get your favorite show ad-free and get exclusive access to the members-only Discord, including discounts and all that stuff as well. There's a lot of stuff available for that. On audio, make sure you find a second listen and Locked On College Football or Locked On SEC. Hotty toddy, everybody. Today, biggest game in program history, potentially. We'll see how it goes. Hotty toddy.